Welcome back to Sports Desk, where we are joined by a man who's had a rich and varied career, which is certainly not over yet. The former Rangers and Sunderland manager Michael Beale is alongside us. Good afternoon. I got the sense at the start of the season, I was thinking, is someone like Michael Beale or any manager out of work looking at that opening day of an EFL season thinking, God, I wish I was on that touchline. But the chat we've just had in the break, I get the sense you're quite enjoying not being there at the moment.
Yeah, I'm having a fantastic period of reflection and learning and growth. I've been to over 12 countries watching football, done some bucket list things in that as well, and obviously some much needed time at home with the family. But I'll be lying if watching some of the games this weekend you don't want to be back in. That is the ultimate aim.
When you left Sunderland then, was that an immediate thing that you thought, no, I don't want to jump straight back into something if I get offered a job in 2 weeks' time?
Well, yeah, listen, I went...
Or a head coach's job, I should say.
Yeah, listen, I went into Sunderland very quickly after Glasgow Rangers, two huge football clubs, a lot of responsibility in those clubs as well. And it was publicly known, obviously, my young niece wasn't well at that time. There were some family things I needed to give time to. So the opportunity to take a few months out, the aim was a year and spend time with the family, but go and really study and reflect and review on everything. I'd gone over 20 years without taking a break. And as a young coach, I thought it was a really good time. I needed the time to grow and take everything from those experiences as well, Rob. So
what are the key experiences you feel you've had since then, and what are the main things you think you've learned over the past few months?
Well, the big thing is, like, if you had over 20 years of coaching experience in terms of going in and coaching a group of players is one thing. Coming through the academy system like I did, and as an assistant to Stephen at Rangers and Aston Villa, you have a wonderful experience of working with players on the training pits. There's a whole other side of being a manager in terms of dealing with media and obviously the other things the job entails that you're learning en route, if you like. And I think the experiences I've had have been fantastic for that. I'm a keen advocate for learning languages, so it's something that I wanted to go away and polish up again with my Portuguese from the time in Brazil. So, no, I think this period has been great. It's important that you can look back and reflect on your sessions, what went well, what didn't go well. So it's been a nice period to have.
Let's start with Rangers then, shall we? Because it's 2 draws to open the season for Russell Martin. How would you assess the size of the challenge he has ahead of him to get them competing with Celtic again?
Well, I don't think we've seen everything from Russell Martin's team yet. One or two of his key new signings have not been available. They've played very well, or did play very well against Victoria Pleasant last week. So it looks like they're going to make a playoff game with Salzburg or Club Brugge, which will be huge for the club. I think in the summer, the club has had a complete reset. And with that, it's going to take time for the new owners to really instill the culture they want behind the scenes, and for Russell as well. And I wish him well. It's a huge job. But I know that he's super confident, and we exchanged text messages, and I wished him well.
Did you give him any advice?
No, I think, listen, Russell he's got a way that he wants to play football. I think it's different to the last coach, so give him time to implement that. I think you've got new players going into what is a huge football club. It's very unique, the demands there. So wherever you've been before, I think those players need time to settle, and I think they've also played maybe 5 or 6 games already in a short period of time. So the result of the weekend wasn't ideal, but there's a long season ahead. It
was interesting there that you talked about the club and you used the word culture. I wanted to read you 2 quotes from 2 people who followed you into the dugout. Barry Ferguson, who was their interim last season, he was speaking about a defeat against Hibs. And he said, these are the games this group of players struggle with. It was evident today, you're playing for Glasgow Rangers. If you can't get up for games of football, you shouldn't be playing football. Russell Martin, after his first league game, said we had too many on the pitch today who just did what they wanted to do. When you just want to jog around, there's a big problem. Some of them have to drop their ego. Was culture in the dressing room something you thought was a bit of an issue whilst you were there? I know it's not entirely the same squad of players, but there is some overlap.
No, each person experiences it in their own way. In the time that I was there with Stephen, we're the management staff that had stability for 3 years to build. So we was able to recruit to play a certain way. We certainly hit bumps in the road, but we had the fantastic season where we're invincible. No one would question our mentality in that year or in the big European games that we had back then. When I went in, we won 18, drew 1, lost 1 of the first 20 games. I could never aim mentality at the players. What I do feel is it is a cauldron. And the fans are very, very demanding because of the history of the club and what they've seen. And also the journey over the last 10 or 12 years to come back through the leagues. I think what the club's achieved sometimes is overlooked. They come back through the leagues, they won the league, they got to Europa League final, they have won trophies. But the club needs stability. The new ownership going in, I think, is hugely positive for Rangers. It will give the club a real stable footing in terms of boardroom level, because there's been a lot of change the last 2 or 3 years from when I was in to followed the next managers as well. And I think, you know, the manager deserves and needs time. Patience is not a great word that's listened to or heard in Glasgow, but that's what he needs.
Do you think that is something that's sometimes underestimated, particularly from new players coming in? Just that cauldron, that noise, that expectation from both sides of Glasgow is absolutely massive up there, and one defeat or 2 draws, as we've seen in a league season, is an absolute crisis.
Yeah, because each league is different. Each league around the world is different, but the Scottish League's different. You can't go off a player's past performance. But certainly the Rangers and Celtic fans as well don't go off players' past performances down in England, for example. They want to see it in front of their eyes. And for some players, that's a cauldron to come into. In my time there, we signed players from Serie A, for example, that also found it difficult. So it's a unique culture. It's a club where you have a lot of possession, where teams maybe sit in low blocks, and the aim is to unlock them, the blocks, and it takes time. The relationships on the pitch are really important, and that's why some stability at Rangers in terms of manager, I think, will be everything they're looking for. And
just on the cauldron and the noise, then, that season that you had with Stephen, where you delivered that long-awaited league title, I wonder whether that was part of the success. Having spoken to him a few times, his drive is just extraordinary. Is that if anyone can embrace pressure, Steven Gerrard's the man.
Yeah, listen, the way that he drove that club in terms of the standards, not just him, the management team, Gary McAllister was hugely influential, and the other guys that were there as well. But we built a family during the COVID period, was a period where we spent a lot of time with the players individually. We built a lot of feeling and relationship, and I think the clubs that do well, there's a lot of relationship and feelings that are going well. And we started that season, we were very consistent in our ideas of the way we wanted to play. And don't forget, we was there for 193 games. And I think the key thing is stability, and so you can build it. Also that the fans and the players feel the manager's strong as well.
Welcome back to Sky Sports News. The former Sunderland Rangers QPR head coach Michael Beale is still with us. We've covered Rangers, so let's get to Sunderland. And whilst talking Rangers, we talked about managers being afforded time. Do you feel you weren't afforded enough time up in Sunderland?
Well, listen, I think that the fans were really upset that Tony Mowbray left, and that sort of overlapped into me going in. In the league, we spent a lot of time in the top 6 when I was there, and unfortunately we fell out just before I left. But look, I'm really pleased with everything that's happened at Sunderland this season, or the season just gone, and I'm really excited to see how things go from in the Premier League.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's sort of small margins, I think, often changes the pathway of a manager and whether it goes well, doesn't go so well. Because we can talk about your back catalogue of improving young players, and some of the best in the English game at the moment. And that's effectively what Régis Lebris does, isn't it? He works with young players. And he started so well. I think he won 9 of his first 13 games in charge. Yeah. Had you have had that bounce at the start, who knows what might have happened?
Yeah, listen, they recruited really well last summer, and I really like everything about Régis Lebris. I like his background story. I like the way that he carries himself, and I thought I'm willing and cheering them on the whole of last season. There was a lot of people at Sunderland that I'm still friendly with. I was really excited for the young players to fulfil their potential. Maybe the year before was a little bit early, and I thought, Chris Mepham going in, Wilson Isidore, the centre forward, really helped that team forward. And even the young boy scoring in the final, Tommy Wilson, it's a pat on the back for the work that they've done there. So well done to Sunderland, and especially to Régis Lebris, because he's come in and carried himself so well, Rob. Yeah,
we're looking at that famous day at Sunderland and that late winner to get them past Sheffield United. Of the players and the young players that you worked with, Jobe Bellingham, talk to me about him and his potential.
Massive natural enthusiasm, highly competitive, trained very well every day. Obviously, he's a real specimen as a young boy as well. He overtrains sometimes because he just loves football. Really well brought up, similar to his brother, carries himself really well, and I would like to have seen him go into the Premier League, but obviously he's followed the footpaths of his brother, going to Borussia Dortmund, and I think that's a huge compliment to him as well. I think it's exciting to see British players go into the big clubs overseas.
They've done quite a bit this summer, and they probably needed to as well, because they've lost players over the course of the summer. Do you see them having the ability and the potential in that dressing room to stay up?
Well, they've invested heavily. It's important that they mix that with the feeling and the environment they had in the club. This was a young group of players that were chomping at the bit to prove themselves, you know, at the top end of the Championship, get into the playoffs and into the Premier League. And so they've got to blend that now with the new players coming in and how fierce it is in the North East and the demands of it. I'm delighted for the fans and the people at the club that they've got Premier League football again. Some of the players coming in, it's their first time in England, so it'll be interesting how they settle to the league as well.
We've talked about about making mistakes rather, and things you might do differently. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. QPR, your time there, and you were a stage where interest was coming from other clubs. You were top of the Championship. Do you ever regret making the move from QPR?
No, there's a disappointment in the way that the fans feel about it, but I'm still in contact with the owners. I had a wonderful time there. It was my first time as a manager. I'm very thankful it was a fantastic club like QPR. It was a wonderful group of young players to work with. We had no money, so we brought in some loans and free transfers, and we started so well. But, you know, you have decisions in your life. I try not to look back. There's certainly things that I can learn from, and the disappointment is the way the fans felt, because my feeling towards QPR and the players and the staff there is still really, really big, and I think they've recruited an excellent manager. I think QPR will have a good season this year.
Is there an acceptance, I think, particularly when it doesn't happen too often, when a manager chooses to go somewhere else, that will always sort of frustrate a fan base a little bit?
Yeah, for sure, because we were doing so well. You know, nothing was expected of us going into the season, and maybe 14, 15 games in, we were playing such really good football and scoring fantastic goals. And it's a special period for me. It was a period where everything we were doing was working, the team was good, and decisions come along. Obviously, everyone knew that I'd spent 3.5 years at Rangers. There was a big affinity there. My wife and children are living in Glasgow as well. There was a lot behind the decision, but that's nothing to take away from my feeling towards QPR.
Let's talk about what comes next then. Have you said no to a few things since you've been out of the game?
There's been 1 or 2 opportunities that I didn't feel was right, both here and abroad. I have a big aim to maybe go and work in the continent one day. That's hence the languages and the travelling. And so, yeah, the future will be, I'm ready to go back in. I've taken a lot of time to address some things I wanted to, and obviously to review and reflect everything, but my burning desire's there, and I've spent the last few months travelling and watching a lot of football, so it's been a really, really engrossing period.
Do you find, or have you found from speaking to other managers in the game, that you're a little bit of an anomaly, or there are a few joining you, but there's not always that desire, I wouldn't say, for British coaches to go and work abroad?
No, I'm a real student of the game. I did it the long haul, 20 years, starting with the under-6s all the way through the academy system. So I didn't arrive in a moment, if you like, as a manager. It was a long journey, and it's always been an aim to go and work in the continent. I've been fascinated by European football, and just next week I'm going across to Argentina to finally get to La Bombonera, which is almost a bucket list, to learn from the clubs in South America as well. So I think that's part of my growth and fascination with the game.
I mean, you talked there about the desire being to go to the continent, but you've obviously been out to Saudi to work alongside Stephen at Al Ettifaq. Would somewhere like that, or somewhere like America, also be of an interest to you?
I want to travel with the game, if I'm honest, Rob. Like, I love our football here. It's home, and you only have to look at how the strength of the EFL or this weekend and the weekend before starting again. But it is an aim also at some point to go, and it always will be, to go and work overseas. I think we're seeing our young British players now being cherry-picked by big clubs in Europe. It's a beautiful thing to see. And I think the next step is maybe our coaches to go and learn a second language and take themselves out of the comfort zone. And I'm not ruling anything out. I just know that I'm ready to work now.
Let's just finish then quickly with a little prediction ahead of the new season. You also, part of your career was working with the young players at Liverpool. Can they retain their Premier League title? I
think they're the favourites going in. I think we'll see a reaction from, obviously, Arsenal have recruited Gyökeres, and Chelsea look in a great place, and Man City as well, with Pep Lijnders joining Pep Guardiola. I think it's going to be really interesting coaching-wise. So I think it's an open Premier League.
Open Premier League. I mean, we say it every season, open Championship. Where would your money be for the promoted teams?
I like Ipswich. I like Kieran McKenna a lot as a young coach. But the two teams that have come up from League One, I'll say three because I've got an affiliation to Charlton, but certainly Wrexham and Birmingham. It's the first time I remember two teams coming out of League One with that intent. And I think it's going to be fierce. You see how close the games were this weekend.